Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jai Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Buddhacharya Astotartha Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Buddhacharya Astotartha Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Okay, give me a second here. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Okay. All right. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Deving Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudire. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, we should offer our respectful obeisances unto Lord Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayan Rishi, the supremest human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and unto Srila Prabhupada, the translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. Nashtapayesha Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatuttama Shloke Bhaktim Bhavati Naishtaki. By regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering devotional service to the pure devotee, all that is inauspicious within the heart is destroyed almost to nil, and loving devotion to the Supreme Lord, who is glorified in transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. So, let's do it one more time. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 27th day of January 2021 in SanDiego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada.
We are in Canto 4 entitled The Creation of the Fourth Order. Chapter 29, talks between Narada and King Pachadabarhishat. Text number 29. Asuri Medrama Bhagdvar. Sorry, let me do it right. Asuri Medram Avagdvar. Asuri Medram Avagdvar. Vyavayo Graminam Ratihi. Vyavayo Graminam Ratihi. Upasto Durmadaha Prokto. Upasto Durmadak Prokto. Niritir Guda Uchyate. Niritir Guda Uchyate. Asuri Medrama Vagdvar. Vyavayo Graminam Ratihi. Upasto Durmadak Prokto. Niritir Guda Uchyate. Asuri Medrama Vagdvar. Vyavayo Graminam Ratihi. Upasto Durmadak Prokto. Niritir Guda Uchyate. Please chant. Asuri Medrama Vagdvar. Vyavayo Graminam Ratihi. Upasto Durmadak Prokto. Niritir Guda Uchyate. Asuri Medrama Vagdvar. Vyavayo Graminam Ratihi. Upasto Durmadak Prokto. Niritir Guda Uchyate. Asuri Medrama Vagdvar. Vyavayo Graminam Ratihi. Upasto Durmadak Prokto. Niritir Guda Uchyate. Asuri Medrama Vagdvar. Vyavayo Graminam Ratihi. Upasto Durmadak Prokto. Niritir Guda Uchyate. Ramapati. Can you see it? Asuri Medrama Vagdvar. Vyavayo Graminam Ratihi. Upasto Durmadak Prokto. Niritir Guda Uchyate. Okay, Glenn. Asuri Medrama Vagdvar. Vyavayo Graminam Ratihi. Upasto Durmadak Prokto. Niritir Guda Uchyate. Asuri, called Asuri. Medram, the genitals. Avak, of the fools and rascals. Vaha, gate. Vyavayaha, performing sexual affairs. Graminam, of common men. Ratihi, attraction. Upastaha, the faculty of procreation. Durmadaha, Durmada. Proktaha is called. Niritihi, Niriti. Gudaha, rectum. Uchyate is called. Translation. The city called Gramyaka, which is approached through the lower gate of Asuri, the genital organ, is meant for sex, which is very pleasing to common men who are simply fools and rascals. The faculty of procreation is called Durmada, and the rectum is called Niriti. Purport. When the world becomes degraded, civilization becomes demoniac. And for the common man, the rectum and the genitals are taken very seriously as centers of all activity. Even in such a sacred place as Vrindavan, India, unintelligent men pass off this rectal and genital business as spiritual activity. Such people are called sahajiya. According to their philosophy, through sexual indulgence one can elevate oneself to the spiritual platform. From these verses of Srimad Bhagavatam, however, we understand that the desires for sexual satisfaction are meant for the arvak, the lowest among men. To rectify these rascals and fools is very difficult. After all, the sex desires of the common man are condemned in these verses. The word durmada means wrongly directed, and nirati means sinful activity. Although this clearly indicates that sex indulgence is abominable and misdirected even from the ordinary point of view, the sahajiyas nonetheless pass themselves off as devotees conducting spiritual activities. For this reason, Vrindavan is no longer visited by intelligent men. We are often asked why we have made our center in Vrindavan. From the external point of view, it can be concluded that Vrindavan has become degenerate due to these sahajiya activities. Yet from the spiritual point of view, Vrindavan is the only place where all these sinful persons can be rectified by means of taking birth in the forms of dogs, hogs, and monkeys. By living in Vrindavan as a dog, hog, or monkey, the living entity can be elevated to the spiritual platform in the next life. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Midatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So, now the Muni is continuing to explain the allegory he mentioned in the previous chapter, described in the previous chapter, to King Prachinabhari, so there's no confusion. And Srila Prabhupada has explained them quite thoroughly in his purports, so there's no doubt. And this particular verse deals with the sex organ, genital organs, and the rectum, probably calls rectum, anus, whatever, that particular hole, which is somehow these two are very pleasing to the common men, fools and rascals. So this is the Srimad Bhagavatam, written 5,000 years ago, and we can see that the degraded civilization is manifest all around us, and that is that in my short lifetime, I've seen a rapid degeneration. I have more and more emphasis on sexual activity. Prabhupada says, and it's become evident, that marriage is practically imagination in society now. There are whole bunches of people who don't even plan to get married. Why bother? You know. And one of the results of this, because of the prominence and prevalence of contraception and abortion, there's not enough people being born. America has a problem, but other countries like Japan have a serious problem of people just don't want to have the burden of children. You know, it interferes with their enjoyment. So this is very distorted. You can see how just from reading Krishna's activities in Vrindavan, Goloka Vrindavan, how the perfection of loving exchange, a lot of it is in the Vatsalya Ras, seeing Krishna as a beloved child. And always it's mentioned how the children are the source of great happiness for the parents. Well, what a distortion of actual ordinary nature, what to speak of transcendental nature, present society is, where people they have a child, they have one or two children, and then they hover over these kids, this helicopter parenting, because, oh my God, if the kid doesn't get into a good school, he won't get a good job, and his material, financial prospects will be destroyed. So, just like when I was a kid, maybe when you were a kid, we went out and played, right? We went out to play, go out and play, Tommy, we'd run around, we'd play hide and seek, we played baseball, and then we'd come back in the evening of dinner, like. Now it's like everything's planned, Okay, you can play, but you got to play in the authorized baseball league, so that and I'll be watching you, huh? Well, yeah, that's another thing where the kids are all sitting at home playing these video games. But this is the thing is, everything has become distorted by the modes of nature, the rapid degradation, as Prabhupada calls it, the rapid degradation of Kali Yuga. Sometimes it's amazing to me to think how this Kali Yuga can go on for another, 427,000 years. That's the schedule. At this rate, it just seems to be heading toward disaster. At any moment, you expect Kalki to appear. And, he doesn't kill everyone. He kills all the demoniac leaders. And after all of the bloodshed and everything is, destroyed, then there's a Satya Yuga begins again. The cycle begins again. So we're a long way from that. So the body is like a big city. That's where we have Puranjan. Pura is like Jagannath Puri. Puri is a word that means city. So the body itself is like a city with these 9 gates. So these 2 most abominable gates are the genitals and the anus, or the rectum. And the more that people are focused on sex pleasure, and I guess eating is, and the rectum, I can't, anyway, the more that the whole society becomes degraded. And as Prabhupada mentions here, it's very difficult to rectify people who are absorbed in that. And that's what he was confronted with. I mean, part of the 60s was a so-called sexual revolution, breaking out of whatever strictures there were. I mean, there was a strong Christian, influence in America. Some kind of marriage was a sacred right. Having a child outside of marriage was considered a black mark then. That was bad, really bad. And if someone was pregnant and they weren't married, then there was a tremendous effort by their parents to get them married. Shotgun marriage, all that stuff. I don't know. It seems to be gone. I mean, I'm not beating about all that right now, but the whole society. I bet 20% of the people in America have STDs. For those who don't know what STD is, you can look it up. But it's 20%. Of the whole United States population has STDs, sexually transmitted disease, which means there's this incredible illicit sex going on everywhere. So how do we relate to that? Well, we know that Krishna consciousness is a tremendous, what we used to call, countervailing force against this force of degradation. The beginning is, if you really want to practice Krishna consciousness, you become attracted to the philosophy and the lifestyle and the devotees, you have to accept austerities, no illicit sex, no gambling, no intoxicant, no meat eating. That's a big hurdle for many people. There's many people who like Krishna to some degree, but generally it's illicit sex and intoxication. They won't be able to give up. It's in some form, So. But as we have heard many times before, this material world, is a perverted reflection of the spiritual world. There can't be anything here that's not there, but it can be distorted and perverted. So this illicit sex is the lowest thing. Just think of what it leads to disease. It leads to breakup of marriages. It leads to violence. It leads to social degradation of all kinds, and it's totally condemned. So in the spiritual world, the highest love for Krishna, the highest position is the gopis, and they're enjoying in Vrindavan, Goloka Vrindavan, in Braj, this Parakiya Ras. Parakiya Ras is unwedded love. Many of them were unmarried, but some of them were married. So here you have it. So people who are fools and rascals, Prabhupada accused that, they say, well, the Prakrita Sahajiyas, they take that as a model. We had one person here, I'm not going to mention the names, who would come regularly over the years. She would show up. Seemed a very nice lady, and I'm not saying but she very rarely asked any question or made a comment. But then there was one time she made a comment, and she said, my understanding is that Krishna It shows the model of how to live, you know. Now, in one sense, there's that, you know. I've been reading the Krishna book regularly, and you can get to the Dwarka Leela. And there's a point there where Krishna's daily activities, he gets up very early, and his wives are disgusted because he goes and it's Brahma Muhurta, and he sits for meditating on himself. We don't meditate on ourselves, he meditates on Krishna. So he's showing. Who was that who asked me the verse? Yad Yadachadati Shreshtas? Someone asked me for that reference this morning. And, Damodar. Krishna said, he said, if I didn't perform all these duties, then I would be the cause of degradation for the world. Right? This is right in the Bhagavad Gita. Therefore, although I don't have any duties in this world, I take them on voluntarily as a good model. And Prabhupada talks about that in that chapter of the Krishna book. He's showing a perfect householder life, like that. So, that the householder life is there in Krishna consciousness. We know that. Most of the disciples certainly the associates of Lord Chaitanya in Navadvip were householders. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, it's possible to do that and live a very perfect Krishna conscious life and go back to Godhead. But it requires that one accepts the authority, the higher authority of Krishna and Guru and Shastra, and that one is willing to mold one's life according to that and surrender, against one's natural conditioned desires for a higher cause, for a higher purpose, both personally and socially, and in every other kind of way. So that acceptance of the authority is what is been practically destroyed in this country. So Prabhupada came into a society where he had to find out a few who would accept his authority. There were hardly any Shastra. I mean, he was speaking Bhagavad Gita, but there was hardly anything printed. He had those books, and Easy Journey was there. And he found it. Now, how did he find that? Because he didn't just present it as a philosophy. We hear these lectures. If you listen to those early lectures, I love to listen to the 1966 lectures, But what we don't hear most of the time is the long kirtan that preceded that, an hour. These kirtans went on for an hour. And Prabhupada is leading the kirtan, and everybody's getting into it. Somebody's in the corner playing the string bass. There's an old piano. There's all kind of. It was under control, but different than not exactly what we have today. But the point was, somehow or other, they were chanting. This is the special quality of Lord Chaitanya's movement. The preliminaries are nothing. Nam namakari bahudanis and tatrapidani yamatak smarane nakala. No restriction of time, place, candidate, anything. Somehow or other, chant the holy name. And everything begins from there. Because that gives you, with a little concentration and a little absorption, an experience. You're not sure what it is. It's pleasurable, it's blissful, it's transcendental, it's something, it's far out. Right? They didn't know exactly what to call it. But those who experienced that, a certain percentage, a small percentage, but a significant percentage, stayed for the lecture, and their intelligence became purified. They started to hear the philosophy that undergirded the whole thing, undergirded the experience that they were having. Oh, this is Krishna, this is spiritual energy. You're now, you're experiencing that to a little degree. So that's this movement, and we are the only hope, not we, but that this movement started by Prabhupada and pushed forward by so many sincere devotees for counteracting the evil influence of this modern age. And Prabhupada brings up this point of how even Vrindavan, there are people who go there, and it's the land of the rasa dance. It's a land, people who are not at all interested in restriction or interested in this shastra. Prakrita Sahajiyas. The Prakrita part means materialistic. Sahajiya means taking everything easily. What do we need shastra? We just dance and chant. I learned yesterday, I had no idea. There's a big group of devotees in the UK who dance and chant and take LSD. Yeah, perversion. I mean, it's a free country. You know, you can do that. But that, so you can pervert it through drugs. You can pervert it through illicit sex, you know, and it still has, you know, people get sucked in because they don't know. There's so many ignorant people. So therefore, there's a real battle to be won. The battle is one of hearts and minds. We used to call the battle for hearts and minds in the Vietnam days. And that is that being ourselves examples of genuine Krishna consciousness, even though we're not pure, but we're following the process. And if we take it for what it is and actually practice nicely, we'll also become ecstatic and also become attractive, be able to attract people by not just giving them philosophy and talk, but actually personifying the ideals of Krishna consciousness. So Prabhupada explains here this that they pass off this rectal and genital business as spiritual activity. So why you know, he says Vrindavan now, he's writing this in like mid-70s. Now Vrindavan has changed radically since then. There are many more temples. Our own temple, has, you know, they built this MVT place where devotees can live nearby, and so it's changed a lot. But there's still this low element. And now, because of all the money coming in, because of Prabhupada's success of his movement, thousands of devotees don't want to go on pilgrimage to Vrindavan, and so there's a land mafia. Am I wrong? It's like, you know, it means that if you want to buy land, you go through them and pay. I don't know how it works, but it's criminal. And so there's not only this element, which Prabhupada noticed, you know, that people come there and they're loose in prakrita sahajiya, but there's also an out-and-out criminal element there. But still, Vrindavan is unique because of the place Krishna lived there. That if you go there, you can still go on tour. You know, we have the parikramas going on, and is Bhadra still organizing that? You know, Dravida Dasa? I don't know if you know, in Vrindavan. Yeah, he started that. Yeah. He's been doing that for many, many years. So the parikrams are going on, wonderful kathas going on, the VIHE, Vrindavan Institute of Higher Education, is there. There's a wonderful site, by the way, if you're interested, with recordings of many of the seminars. I was listening recently to one of the early japa retreats that Burijan Prabhu would run, you know. And it's very wonderful. You know, he's speaking about, just like what we were speaking about, the mind. The whole thing is the mind. You know, just chant one mantra nicely. You know, don't worry about finishing around. Chant one mantra nicely, and it's very wonderful. So all that, you know, is available. You can get some of that online. But going there on pilgrimage is still a wonderful experience and very fulfilling. And one has to be careful, though. You know, that you don't get sucked into any of these sahajiya groups, and that you stick with ISKCON, as Prabhupada wanted us to do. There's one purport I want to, it reminds me, in the 19th chapter of Madhya Lila, this is the teachings of Lord Chaitanya to Rupa Goswami. And there's that famous verse, Brahmanda Brahmata Koram Bhagyavan Jeev Guru Krishna Basarai Pai Bhakti Lata Bij, that the living entities are wandering throughout the universe. Brahmanda means Brahma's egg. This universe like an egg. And the fortunate jiva, by the mercy of Guru and Krishna, both, by the mercy of first comes the mercy of Guru Krishna is mentioned first, and then you get Krishna's mercy, and the seed of the creeper of devotion is planted in your heart, in the form of the holy name, the instructions, faith in them, and all of that is planted. And then we need to water it, chiefly through the Shravan Kirtan Jal, the water of hearing and chanting. That's the most important water for that creeper. And then then there's, you say, you have to avoid the offenses. If you offend a devotee, that's the mad elephant offense. He'll get into that garden and wreck it. So you have to be very careful about that. But there's one purport there where he's talking about the importance of the association of devotees. are pure devotees. Now he would call his disciples pure devotees because they're on the path of pure devotion, sincerely following like that. So that's what he's talking about. And then he has this important line, which goes something like this. Even if one thinks there are no pure devotees in the ISKCON society, still one should stick to the society. And if you still have some questions, then you can keep company with the spiritual master and like that. Prabhupada did not want us to leave the society. Now, interestingly enough, in the first printing of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, 1975, the 17 books in 2 months marathon, which was the version that everyone was reading for 20 years till 1995, when after working right here for a year on it, we came out with a revised version, and I had the original transcripts, and the original transcripts showed a line that had been missed. And what was the line? Stick in the society. I don't know if it was intentional or not. I'm going to guess. Let's assume it was just an oversight. But that was missing. Even if you think that there's, such a wonderful sangha outside, stick with the society. Prabhupada had already seen his devotees getting involved. They'd come to Vrindavan, they'd wander in Radhakund and get, hear this, hear that, and then they'd come back and they'd say, well, there's no bhajan here. One famous devotee did that. I'm not going to name any names. There's not enough bhajan, So then he asked Prabhupada, can you please, recommend me to an actual guru? Can you believe that? He said like that. So he was, he was someone who had a very responsible position in the movement. So it's what I'm saying is, as we know, that Krishna consciousness is a razor's edge, and if one practices nicely, and here we have these wonderful deities, sangha, and the opportunity to meet every day and take advantage of everything, all the gifts Srila Prabhupada has given. And so we should stay with that, and we should know for sure that we can achieve the highest levels of devotional service by following the program that Srila Prabhupada has chalked out for us and given us so much facility. But it's important that we get that taste for the sangha amongst the devotees, and that's why this pandemic was such a difficult thing, because devotees who would travel and then big festivals. What happened to the Ukraine festival last year? Didn't happen. How many devotees? Sometimes 20,000 some devotees come together with it. 8,000. But can you imagine a kirtan with 8,000 devotees? All the mridangas playing perfectly in time. I mean, just to think about it makes me ecstatic. But that's what, so now, we're locked down. So we have the internet, I couldn't attend. There was a Vrindavan Parakram. Did you know that? That Jagatarani and I think Dinabandhu was a part of it. They went around and they were filming, and Bhakti Chaitanya Maharaj, and they were, speaking about all the different places in Vrindavan. So, if you want it, if you're really determined, you can get the good sangha. Even here we can have, our sangha is so important, personal sangha, and maintain your enthusiasm for Krishna consciousness. As I've been emphasizing, we need to be, in order to spread Krishna consciousness, we need to be excited about Krishna consciousness ourselves. That's why the best, I think Vijay Prabhu would agree, that the best foundation and preparation for distribution is reading Prabhupada's books, getting excited about them. So this is a wonderful book. People should be able to read this and get the benefit. But that's not a given, because the modes are so heavy that your interest in Krishna consciousness can become eclipsed by these other influences. So that's why reading it together, Prabhupada wants us to come together and glorify. Satam basangan mama virya samvido bhavanti ritkana rasayana kata. Don't we want to drink that rasayana? Rasayana is like a life-giving elixir. What is it? It's glorification of Krishna. Mama virya samvido. Samvido is conversation. You come together with the other devotees, the other sadhus, It may not be completely pure sadhus, but we're, trying. So satam basangan, getting, every syllable is important. The sangha, and there's prasanga. Probably would often, you would say, prakrishta rupena, right? The pra, prefix means that it increases, it intensifies. It's what would we say? There's kirtan, and then there's mega kirtan, right? 1,000 devotees together, mega. So pra is mega. So prasangan means meaningful association, hearing with great attention, chanting, becoming absorbed. That's prasanga. This series of verses begins with that word, but in a negative way. Prasangam majanam pasham. These tight attachments that we have, intense attachments, in the material life, has to be turned toward the sadhus. We have to become attached and have affection for the sadhus, because we're going to be completely absorbed and attached in something. And if it's not the sadhus, we can come down and be attached to the genital rectal business. This is what we're faced with. So that determination to take to come into the association of devotees and to take advantage of hearing and chanting. I think I haven't had a chance to do this. I don't know if I'll get to do it this lifetime. But Vaisheshika Prabhu, when he would go on his yearly pilgrimage to India and go to Govardhan, and they would go around. He would have parakram. But a large part of it was sitting and hearing and chanting and reading Prabhupada's books. And Keshava Bharati Maharaj just taken that essence of it and made it into a good part of his life. Every day he reads for at least an hour or more Bhagavatam on his Facebook page. And it's known, it's like live streamed. And he has hundreds of devotees around the world just listening to, the reading. So it's a great way. It's better than even reading alone. Because someone will interrupt. Oh, that reminds me of this verse, and it's just being with other devotees is the essence. And then what is that verse in the 11th canto? Paraspadano katanam bhavanam bhagavadyasha mitodati mitastushtir nirita mitaratmanaha. This is one of the 9 yogendras speaking about the process of devotion. Paraspadano katanam. Paraspada means mutually, back and forth. Anukatanam, speaking about Krishna, Pavanam Bhagavadyasha, the purifying glories of Bhagavan. This is what we're, Katanam. And what's the result? Mito Ratir. They mutually increase their attraction for Krishna. Rati. Mito Stushtir, and their satisfaction. And Nivritti Mitara, they also help their detachment from Maya, from material things. So that's the great treasure of Krishna Katha and Krishna's association. Prabhupada came, and the basic thing he did, he gave people his association. And always when you get Prabhupada's association, you're going to hear glorification of Krishna. Holy name, pour it out by the hour. He's ready to do that. And because of his potency and Lord Chaitanya's arrangement, he found an audience, and that's how everything has grown exponentially since then. So that's our heritage, and to be able to take advantage of it, you have to be purified. If you're performing sinful activities and you're trying to, you won't be attracted. You won't be interested. There's other things to do. There's always other things to do, in this material world. But to make that a priority of coming together, glorifying together, being part of the kirtan, the class, and learning the books so you can contribute. That's it takes an effort, but it's the payoff is unlimited. It's beyond anything we can imagine. So part of it is all of these wonderful instructions, this allegory. What's the purpose of this? The purpose is immediately Narada Muni is trying to save King Prachanabhari from his absorption in all of these material sacrifices and a very painful future. All of these animals he sacrificed are ready to take revenge. So Narada Muni, who his whole purpose in existence is to spread Krishna consciousness. He goes everywhere, and so he's telling this allegory. And this is every man, literally. We're all Paranjan. We're living entities within the city of the body. So these lessons are also for us. And having come at the finally when we're going to see the result of this, of course, he comes to the point of realization in Krishna consciousness, and he's already sent his sons off. They've already met Shiva. You remember this song of Shiva? Those are his sons, the Pachetas. So Prachanabhari is also getting the mercy here, And some of it is, pretty sobering, these verses. And when we get to the 5th canto, it's even more sobering. But that's what we need. We need to get sobered up. We've been intoxicated with Maya for so long. And we want to be saved, and we want to be instrumental in saving others. So, are there any comments or questions? Do we have anyone in the... let me read this translation again. Tapas, you with us this morning?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam.
Dandavat Pranams. Okay, let me just read this translation. The city called Gramika, which is approached through the lower gate of Asuri, the genital organ, is meant for sex, which is very pleasing to common men who are simply fools and rascals. The faculty of procreation is called Durmada, and the rectum is called Niriti. Balaramji.
Yeah, about this devotee who, he said he asked Prabhupada that question, can you bless me to find a real guru or whatever. Just wondering, is there some documented, or, I know you know who he is, I don't know how much association you had with him, but is there some documented thing? Because it seemed like it must have been a gradual, his consciousness and, becoming offensive like that was a gradual development. What happened exactly? He was just in Vrindavan, he was going to Radhakund and, talking to Babaji's or something.
He was a Sanskrit scholar, see? And he did go off to Radhakund and met some Babaji's, and got something that he hadn't gotten in this guy, and he thought it was better. My experience, because I spent years in L.A., and there was a whole Sanskrit department. And the Sanskrit scholarship, of course, Prabhupada wanted them to learn Sanskrit. He said in the early days, one of the main problems with the editing of the books is that they didn't know Sanskrit well enough. And so we find various anomalies in the Gita, especially. But then Pradyumna was the first, he really, he started off from scratch, and then he learned it, and he became very competent. And Gopi Pranadana Prabhu was also very competent, Vidyanand Maharaj, of course. But the problem was he had, I don't know all the details, but I do know that he went away, and he was exploring Vrindavan on his own. So, but the Sanskrit scholarship itself is also can be dangerous, because what was the need for it? Well, we needed all these Sanskrit to help put out Prabhupada's books, and during the marathon, they were all engaged. It was a whole thing. You had Bengali people who had learned Bengali, some of them, and Sanskrit. And, they had 17 books in 2 months. Everyone had work. All those indexes, checking all the synonyms, and everything. So everyone was fully engaged. But then the books ended, the books didn't end, and Prabhupada went on and finished his Bhagavatam work, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th cantos. But there wasn't as much work. And so here you had this department. So they got into studying this and that, Some of them got into astrology, because that's one of the ways you can earn a living, And so that happened. So the danger is that you get yourself into a service in which there's a competition, for your attention. And the basic program of meeting with devotees, attending the class, being in the kirtan with devotees, so that which is so important on a psychological level. So many little differences that can grow up, that can develop into real conflict, are eradicated, are neutralized in a big kirtan. When you're with other devotees enjoying the kirtan. What to speak of discussing Prabhupada's books. So that if that isn't there, then you run the risk of getting yourself into some intellectual position. Because nowadays, things have changed so much, especially with the internet. At any time you press this button, and you're on a nice ISKCON site. You press another button, and there's a whole other site, and you're hearing something else, some other interpretation. Prabhupada never said that. I didn't know that. And before long, you're doubting Prabhupada's authority and so many different things. It's a big hazard for editors of all kind. That's why there's only one left. I don't know when that. I don't know there's one that. But from those days, there's very few who really kept with the service, because, imagine your service is to change. Prabhupada said this, but it has to be changed in order to. So it's very delicate. You can easily commit an offense. So always you have to be in the right mindset. Prabhupada, absolute his word and so forth. He wanted it. He wanted it to be grammatically correct and all these different things. But it can be hazardous. So that's true for the Sanskritas also. And that's what happened. I'll tell you later more about it. But I know pretty much what happened. And I did have quite a bit of association with him in the early days. Any questions from our guests?
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Haribol.
There is a question from Ujjeshwari Mataji. She said, so much preaching going on, why is still people attracted more to sense gratification?
I don't know if it's me, my ears. I have trouble with your accent. There's so much preaching going on. Why are people still attracted to sense gratification? Well, even during Lord Chaitanya's time, there were still a lot of people, attracted to sense gratification. The modes of nature are very powerful, and if someone is determined to refuse, to not be to be unreceptive to the message of Krishna consciousness, then you stay in the material world. I mean, that's a universal principle. It's not just now. I mean, Lord Chaitanya, why did Lord Krishna come? He came in order to establish Dharma, right? Everyone knows that verse. Yadaya dahi dharma saglani bhavati bhavati. They were Dharma saglani during Lord Krishna's time. You had whole kingdoms run by the demons. What do you think was going on there? A whole lot of sense gratification. Brahmana's kingdom. So this tendency is always there. And the Lord Chaitanya's movement, as I mentioned, as it's Krishna's movement. Krishna came as Lord Chaitanya to provide a process suitable for this age. As I mentioned, no prerequisites. You don't have to be a Brahmin, this and that. Just chant. And what were we reading the other day? Ho Badashra Pachoto Gariyan. Devahuti's verse. How wonderful it is. Even the dog eaters, if they're somehow chanting your holy name, she's speaking to her son, Kapila is Krishna. They're so glorious. They must have performed all kinds of sacrifices in previous life, read all this Shastra and all these things. And the previous verse says that even the dog eaters, by chanting the name, can become qualified to perform Vedic sacrifices. So that's especially suitable, for Kali Yuga. But Kali Yuga is you read the 12th canto. You'll see the degradation of Kali Yuga. Without taking shelter of the holy name, one has no hope. And even if you do take shelter, if you don't take shelter in the right way, you can get, Kali Maya is very tricky. So it's okay, he wants to chant the holy name, but still he really likes sex lives. So we'll give him a philosophy by which he can think that he can do both. In Prakrita Sahajiya. And so this way she keeps it started. And that's why we need Prabhupada's instruction in his purports and his example, and take shelter of that, and be very. As it is said, the prayers, there's so many wonderful songs, but I'm more into the shlokas. Mandasija Panijishtam. This comes at the end of a beautiful book called the Govinda Virudavali, which is in the database, by the way. And it says, Manasija Panijishte Labdapatos Midushte Timadagahna Rupe Hanta Sangsara Kupe Ajita Nikala Raksha Heta Murdara Daksha Mupanaya Mamahaste Bhakti Rajum Namaste. Fallen in this deep and dark and dirty well of Maya, threatened by the snake of lust, whose venom burns like fire, helplessly I pray, O Lord, whose strength is ne'er in doubt, place the rope of bhakti in my hands and pull me out. So, it was written by Rupa Goswami. So Krishna came as Lord Chaitanya. That rope is available to all of us. Our job is to hold on tight to it by practicing strictly the principles as Srila Prabhupada has given us them. And then we'll be safe. But we can't expect that we're not going to always face, in this age especially, many demonic people, unfortunate people who are overwhelmed with desire for these lower pleasures, which are just degrading and sinful and lead to tons of suffering. So much suffering from it, you know. So blessed, you know. I mean, just a personal note, you know, I've been around for so long. I remember when in Miami, remember the early 80s, I think that was when the cocaine thing started, and the AIDS. Remember the AIDS thing started in the early 80s. Famously, Reagan never mentioned it. He just went through it. We couldn't deal with it. But it's you know, the AIDS is the you know, the genital and erectile you know, emphasis, and you know, the cocaine thing. I never wanted to take it, you know, and you know, to not have even the desire, even the interest and the curiosity to do that. What for? You know, get these slokas. They can get, it's very wholesome intoxication. You know, it's wholesome intoxication. Read the Chaitanya Charitamrita. You know, and there's no bad effect, and you can take it as much as you want. One verse. I'll just share this one thing, but then I have to end. So Rupa Goswami has given us all kinds of things, beautiful Vidagdha Madhava, Lalita Madhava, you know, very extensive plays, philosophy, Laghu Bhagavatamrita, proving one thing, one thing, Krishna is God, you know, very important. And but he gives, for those who are not, you know, so skilled at memorizing verses, he gives this little poem called the Ananda. It's called Ananda Chandrika. 10 names of Srimati Radharani. So I'm going to read the benefits first. There's like four verses, the size of Manmanabhavam Bhakta. And here's the benefit. Iman Vrindavaneshwaraya Dashanama Manoramam Ananda Chandrikananam Yorahasyam Stutim Patate, which means these 10 names of Radharani, Vrindavaneshwara, the goddess, empress of Vrindavan, which are Dashanama, 10 names, Manoramam, very enchanting for the mind, and which are named Ananda Chandrika, the moonlight of bliss, very confidential. One who Rahasyam Stutim Patate, one who recites this confidential mantra, 2 little verses. Here's the benefits. Saklesha Rahito Bhutva, Bodhisattva Bhushitaha, becomes completely devoid of any suffering. Saklesha Rahito Bhutva, Bodhisattva Bhushita, becomes decorated and inundated with good fortune. And Tvaritam Karuna Patram Radhamadava Yogavet. And very quickly becomes the object of compassion and mercy of Radha and Madhava. What more do you want? So here it is, 2 verses. I'll teach you them if you want. Radha Damodara Preshta. You know it? You know it by heart. Radhika Varshabhanavi Samasta Ballavi Vrinda Dhammillo Tangsamallika. So is it Radha, it's the first name. Damodara Preshta, beloved of Damodar. Radhika, the best worshipper of Krishna. Varshabhanavi, the daughter of King Vrishabhanu. Samasta Ballavi Vrinda Dhammillo Tangsamallika. She's just like a garland of jasmine flowers. They call it a chaplet, garland for the head you wear on the head. There's a name for it called chaplet. On the braided hair of all the other gopis. In other words, she's the chief of all the gopis. Krishna Priyavali Mukya Gandharva Lalita Sakhi. She is the chief of all the lovers of Krishna. Gandharva, she's a wonderful singer and dancer. Lalita Sakhi, friend of Lalita. And Vishaka Sakya Sukhini. The friendly behavior of Vishaka very much pleases her. And Hari did bring a manjari. She's like a blossoming manjari of a mallika flower for the bee of Krishna's heart, you know. So there it is, 10 names, you know. And so in other words, he's giving us, everything he gives us is absolute. You know, if you want a long play and philosophy. So this is the gifts. You know, we've given so much to absorb our mind and meet together and glorify and sing and dance, you know. And that's, if we learned how to relish that, even a little bit, it takes the mind completely away and negates the attraction to this rectal and genital business. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Haribol.